Good morning, Intrepid Impact listeners. I'm Jerry Howard, your host of the Intrepid Impact Leadership broadcast here on ESPN Richmond Radio 106.1. And we are talking about the 5 leadership voices. This is our place to talk all things leadership, and that's what we do. Now, I've been doing a lot of teaching on the 5 voices, but it's getting good. We've done 3 episodes on the first and most quiet voice. And quiet doesn't mean they whisper. Quiet means that they're not overriding others. That's the nurturer voice. And we're going to recap that one in just a minute. But I got some exciting news, Intrepid Impact folks. I'm so excited to tell you that our website is live. Now, that's me, right? That's me. I'm a perfectionist. That's all it is to it. But I figure that if we're going to put it out there, we're going to do it right. We're going to publish it. It's still got a page that is not published yet. We're still working on the About page. That's the one where we talk about all the Intrepid Impact leadership team members. And if you didn't know, Intrepid Impact Team is our consulting agency. I haven't talked too much about that. We're actually going to spend some episodes talking about the Intrepid Impact team and all of our members. But we are a growing team of 6 consultants that have banded together, realizing that we have so much more power, so much more energy, so much more strength if we work together to help our clients. For example, there's one of our members is a fractional HR director. Her name is Kay Congdon. Kay's been in business for decades, but she brought me in as leadership coach with one of her clients. And that's really where this idea started to develop. I also work with another coach with another client, and we sometimes share those clients. So what we realized was together we can tap into what is called synergy. Synergy is the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. I'm going to say that again. Synergy is the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. What in the world does that mean? It just means together we can accomplish more. Think about it. Like if someone does a thing on their own, let's say they build a chair on their own. Let's say they're in carpentry. And then someone else builds another chair on their own. And the third person builds a chair on their own. Well, they have 3 chairs. But if the 3 of them got together and figured out a system, maybe like an assembly line of how to build chairs, in the amount of time that each one created 1 chair, they can create a lot more chairs. And I think Henry Ford was the one who first put the assembly line into mass production. But hey, that's a little business tidbit for you. Synergy. You're not going to get anywhere that you really are called to go alone. So always remember, teamwork makes the dream work. You may have heard that 100 times. I don't care how many times you heard it. Teamwork does the results. You got to work together. So the Intrepid Impact team involves 6 and a growing number of consultants that are coming together and recognizing that together we all have strengths, we all have weaknesses, that we need to complement one another, that we can build each other up, that we can share successes and failures. And that's really what we're talking about here is teamwork, leadership, recognizing that every voice has value. There's value in every voice. As soon as you get to my website, you're going to see that value in every voice. That's what we believe, folks. Value in every voice. That's why we are teaching the 5 voices. So, hey, if you're just tuning in, we're here at ESPN Richmond Radio 106.1, the Intrepid Impact broadcast. Now, I just finished recording another production for an event, and I talked about how we can share our gifts with others. So if you're listening in and you're like 5 leadership voices, what is this crap about, right? Well, here's the thing. We all have giftings. Deep inside of you, there's something that you should be doing that you haven't really started doing. That at work, perhaps, that your best contribution has yet to be realized. And that's really what we want to talk about when we talk about the 5 leadership voices. We're talking about communication. Communication. Now, if you're one of the quieter voices, you might not be doing that good a job of communicating. That's one of the reasons why we kind of call them quieter voices. So in order to maximize team performance, if you're a business leader, perk up, maximize team performance. You can't start with alignment. You can't start with execution. You can't start with capacity. You got to start with communication. You got to start by bringing value to every voice at the table and capitalizing on that. That's communication. Through that communication, you develop a language. We teach at Intrepid Impact Team, we teach a language of leadership. Doesn't require any special skills to learn, doesn't even need a college degree. We work with leaders at all levels. Once we have that communication established, then we can build relationships. Think about it. If you go to China and you don't speak Chinese, it's going to be pretty hard for you to form a relationship. So you need to figure out a way to communicate, a common language. We teach a common language of leadership. It begins with valuing every voice and understanding the 5 leadership voices. Now, after you got relationships, then you can work on alignment. Make sure you got the right people on the bus. Then execution. Make sure everybody's doing what it is that they should be doing. And should doesn't just mean a freaking job description. Should means, are they really the best person for that role? And lastly, you then can increase capacity. You can maximize team performance and then start plugging in more. Because the key to maximizing the team, the key to scaling your business is duplication, multiplication. So Intrepid Impact listeners, we are multiplying. We are 100x leaders. If you want to be an Intrepid, you can check out our website, contact us. We can help you too. Anyone who has gone through the Intrepid Impact process becomes an Intrepid themselves, a fearless change agent. And lastly, about the Intrepid Impact Team, our mission, our vision is to restore trust and leadership. Bring value to every voice and restore trust and leadership. Think about the leaders in your life. Now, how many times have they let you down? Now, I'm a faith person. I'm a Christian. I believe the biblical faith. So I put my trust in the Lord, but I didn't always operate that way. And I tell my kids all the time, don't put your trust in me. I'm going to fail. I'm going to frustrate you. I don't mind saying, I'm not going to say it. I can't cuss on the radio, but P-I, and then there's 2 letters the same right after that, you off, right? I'm going to make you very angry. Let's say it nicely. And that's the point. We have to learn to value every voice. So when someone does get angry, we can overlook it and say, hey, maybe that's just a tendency. All right. So now we understand what it takes to maximize team performance. Let's look at communication. Let's look at each of the 5 voices really quick. So 5 voices. First is the nurturer. We went in depth with that one. That's the battlefield medic. The nurturer will run into the same gunfire that filled that Marine, like Jerry, perhaps. I wasn't a combat Marine, but the combat Marines filled full of bullet holes. The nurturer runs into the same gunfire, gets filled full of bullet holes just to patch up the Marine, not necessarily to take the hill. They're champions of people, relational harmony, and values. Talk about value every voice, value in every voice. The nurturer is going to be a champion of that. They're going to know who those voices are at the table. They're going to know long before you do. That's why I like doing the nurturer first. I want you to meet your nurturers, get to know them. We have a free assessment as well. It's not on my Intrepid website. It's on my personal, but I'm going to put it on the Intrepid website within the next few days. Point is, value in every voice. Nurturers are champions of that. It's 43% of the population speaks first voice nurturer. They're very present tense oriented. How does this affect people now? Then there's the creative voice. We're going to dig deep on that one today, or begin digging deep. And that's the champion of future ideas, innovation, and organizational integrity. Why would you listen to the creative? Because they're going to tell you if you're getting off track. They can see the future, but only 9% of the population comes with that natural gifting. They're very future oriented, of course, thinking about how this is going to affect us and our systems in the future. Next is Guardian. We'll dig into that one in a couple of weeks, but they're champions of due diligence, resources, and efficient systems and processes. Cool thing is, they're the ones that get things done. They ask lots of questions. Why? Because they want to know how to get it done, right? 30%, thank goodness, 30% of the population speaks Guardian, because they are the ones getting the work done. Very present tense oriented, wondering how we're going to get this done now. So now you can understand why before, when we talked about 82% of team members feeling misunderstood or undervalued, why is that, folks? Well, if we take 43, which is the nurturer, 30 is the guardian, and 9 as the creative. Those are the 3 quietest voices. And we add all that up. Guess what, mathematicians? We've got 82%. 82% of the population feels misunderstood or undervalued. Why? Because people are tired of hearing the guardian's questions. They're tired of hearing the creative's warnings. They're tired of hearing the nurturer talk about others. Well, what are these leaders doing? They're just running off of the mouth, apparently, right? Because then only 18% of the population is left. Well, that's the next voice, is the connector. That's 11% of the population. I'm a connector. We love communicating. We love sharing great ideas. We love connecting ideas. We love connecting people to ideas. Connecting is fun, right? But sometimes we talk too much. We're very future oriented. Sometimes we have a hard time getting stuff done right now. That's why I love my guardians. And the last is the pioneer. Pioneer can be the loudest and the strongest and the most compelling vision person on the planet. They are. But they often are so powerful and so convinced that they're right that they can overlook the other voices. So between the connector talking too much and the pioneer not listening, that's why 82% of the population feels misunderstood. But it doesn't end there. We're not just talking smack about the loud voices here. They have a purpose. We all have a purpose. Intrepid Impact listeners, there is value in every voice. I can't say it enough. You just have to be listening. You just have to be listening. In fact, if you check out our website, you can see one of the tools we use is the active listening audit. You go down that list there. This is free. Just check it out. You'll see it. Active listening audit gives you a way of knowing, hey, am I being a good listener or not? If you think you're a connector or a pioneer or even a guardian, perhaps, and you think you're not listening well enough, hey, check out the active listening audit. The other thing you can do is if you're creative or a nurturer and you feel like you're not being heard, check out the active listening audit and see if you can change the way you communicate to fill in the gaps. There's a ton of other tools on our website as well. You can check those out. I'm going to cover all of them too. So if you're tuning in just now, we're at Intrepid Impact Leadership Broadcast 106.1 ESPN Richmond Radio. And I'm your host, Jerry Howard. If you don't remember, I am a leadership coach and consultant, business consultant. I am also a business owner, and I am a certified jail inspector. So let's not forget that. So I got a lot of experience in failure. So that's what I think qualifies me to be up here, is I've screwed it up more times than most people do in 3 lifetimes, and I am only 44. All right. So if you're just tuning in, ESPN Richmond Radio 106.1, we're talking about the 5 leadership voices. I just gave a recap of all of them, and I was ending with the pioneer voice. The pioneer is very future oriented. Only 7% of the population speaks first voice pioneer. 7%. So if you're a pioneer and you feel like nobody gets you, but you don't really care, listen up, because this is how you're going to achieve your goal. Listen up, pioneers. You are going to achieve your goals by letting everybody else go first, and then taking all of that wisdom that you've gained from all the other 4 voices and then executing. And when you do that, you are guaranteed to win. And oh yeah, I heard it. You heard it. I said it. Guaranteed to win. Right. And if I'm getting a little preachy here and a little excited, it's because I get pumped when I think about value in every voice. I get pumped when I think about restoring trust and leadership. Think about it, folks. How many leaders out there do we just feel let down by, not only in the country, but in the world? And as I record this, I'm telling you, folks, it's Independence Day. I want you to incite a revolt. And I don't want you in the street with a pitchfork or a mask on or your hand raised in the air. You're not going to influence anybody in a positive way, acting a fool. You need to incite a revolt in leadership. You need to check out our website, intrepid-impact.com, and look at the active listening audit. Become the best listener that you know. Become the best listener that you know. Be the A student. If you weren't an A student in high school, think about who the A student was and copy them. Fake it till you make it, right? Pretend. Because here's the thing. You owe it to yourself. You owe it to your community. You owe it to your church, your family, your friends, to be the best listener you know. All right, so those are the 5 voices. Let's dig into my favorite. One of my favorite voices is the creative voice. All of them are my favorite, by the way. You know, I said that about the nurturer too. Let's first look at the accidental creative. The accidental creative. Accidental is just a nice way of saying screwing things up. The accidental creative might fail to communicate in a way that the other voices can understand, but then wonder why nobody hears it, why nobody is doing what they said. If you're a creative in leadership and you wonder why people don't get you, it's because you speak future. 73% of the population doesn't speak future. They speak now. The guardians and the nurturers are the ones that are taking care of people and getting things done, and they speak now. So all you've got to do is take your time, think about what you're going to say, and then say it. Think about, what does this look like right now? How does this affect people and resources right now? Now, another thing about the accidental creative, or the creative that's just kind of going along and not really knowing what they're doing, or they haven't taken the time to see what they look like on the other side of themselves. The accidental creative has perfectionist tendencies and an inability to celebrate wins that can gradually suck the joy out of a team. So you're not going to get anything done if you won't let people celebrate. But here's the cool thing. You've got to recognize that 90%, even 80% is good. On average, teams operate at 58% of their potential. 58%. Yeah, if you don't remember, that in school, that was an F. 58 is an F. That's the average. Some are at 40, some are at 70. But here's the thing. If I take a team from their average, let's say the average comes out higher than that. Let's say they start off at 65 and I get them to 85. That's a win. That's a huge victory. Intrepid Impact team uses actual assessments, anonymous team assessments, to calculate where teams are. And so we might start off at 65, but it won't take me longer than 6, 8, 12 months to get you at 85. Right? So that's the thing, is that 85 is not 100. A goal is 100x leader, but that's a pursuit of 100. So creative, why is this relevant to you? Because you got to celebrate that win. Celebrate the small victories every day. Celebrate the small progress. If you don't know how to do that, tap into the guardian voices at the table. The guardians are going to know how to do that. And I'm going to explain why in a few weeks. But next thing we need to know about the creative, they can disengage their team by withdrawing, internalizing idea development or problem solving, and choose not to invite others to participate in the thinking. Look, creative, you only are 9% of the population. 9%. So 91% of the population wants to contribute, and you might not be letting them. And if you're leading a creative, you've got to remember that only 9% of the population speaks the way that person does. So you've got to work with them. Draw out what it is that they're trying to say by asking tactful questions. Now, in withdrawing, the creative, the accidental creative, can become increasingly critical of themselves and others and become less available to their team. Think about that isolated leader that you heard about. I think Howard Hughes was the guy. Didn't he build a plane or something? I don't know what he did. But the point is he was one of those, closet, closed off type of leaders. Brilliant, but closed off. That's a great example of where you could be creative leader, or where one of your wonderful teammates could be if they are creative. If you don't help them, you owe it to yourself to help the creative. Why? Because you can teach them to celebrate the win, even if the result wasn't as quite as perfect as you hoped. And remember, when team members ask questions, they're not criticizing. Creative, they're not criticizing. They just want to understand. The nurturers at the table want to understand how this affects people, this cool vision you have. The guardians want to know, hey, how are we going to get this done? And is it going to cost us 50% of our budget? Or can we do it with 10% of the budget? But remember, I know you don't want to talk. I know that's why you're a quieter voice. I get it. I get it. You've been misunderstood for most of your life. My oldest son is a first voice creative. And it almost brings tears to my eyes to say this, because he was so excited to be able to, when he was little, to sleep with a nightlight off. He didn't need a nightlight anymore. And I remember about a week or two later, he was just really acting real funny before bed. He was like 3 years old or whatever. And I told him, I said, what's wrong, James? Because he didn't have a good way. When he was little, he's a brilliant kid in it. He's got straight A's. He didn't have a good way of communicating. And I kept telling him, I said, James, use your words. James, use your words. Daddy won't understand you. I said, I can tell something's wrong, man. I feel for you. I love you. Use your words. Tell me what's wrong. So finally he says, Daddy, and he's kind of shaking. he was like, I'm scared and I want to sleep with my nightlight on. And I'm like, oh man, that's so exciting. And he's like getting all, he's like weirded out by that. Why is that exciting? I was like, Dad, I'm so proud of you, James. I'm so proud of you for sharing with me and telling me how you feel. Kid hasn't had a problem talking to me since. And so you can do that for the creative. You can unlock the creative and all those wonderful ideas they have. Not all of them are going to be good, but you don't have to criticize them. Because the first voice creative has a hard time coming from the future into the present tense to tell you what's happening right now. All he knew is that in the future, he was going to be scared because the light was going to be off. And all he knew was that light that he was so excited about being able to turn off because he wanted to be a big boy was going to be off. It was going to be dark. And so that's the point here, leaders. If you got the first voice creative, the future might look dark to them. It's up to you to help them realize that you value them, you value their contribution. They don't have to prove themselves to their teammates or to anybody. They're valuable because there's value in every voice. They just need to relax and trust the unique contribution that they bring. But if you're leading a first voice creative, you've got to do it. You've got to be the one to ask those tactful questions. Ask them to use their words. Ask them to write on a whiteboard. Ask them to submit an email, however they communicate best. Because if you really work with them, all right, let me just back up. Steve Jobs, right? First voice creative. That's probably obvious. How many phones has Apple sold? It ain't in the millions. It's in the billions. There are more cell phones in the world now, if I'm getting my numbers right, than people. Right? And there's different versions of them. But here's the thing. It used to be a flip phone. Now it's a smartphone. Now it's just a phone. My kids call me old when I use it. But a first voice creative came up with that. A first voice creative came up with the reason why I can communicate with you right now. And I'm not in front of you. I'm not actually speaking into the radio right now. A first voice creative came up with that. So remember, those golden nuggets are in there somewhere. Think of it. Maybe it's 1 out of every 5. But would you like to be the one who brought the smartphone to the world? Your first voice creative can help you do that. And remember, they are champions of organizational integrity. I want to end with this today, folks. Organizational integrity. Why is that so important? Think of all the scandals out there. We don't want the creative to be ignored because they can tell you if what you're doing is going to veer you off into the gray area of ethics and morals. They can keep you on track because they can spot it a mile away. They can see the future. But only 9% of the population speaks creative. Most people misunderstand them, so they just stop talking. They just go back because they don't, nobody's listening anyway. That's what they're thinking. You can be the one to change that. You can be the one to make the future bright for them. You can make sure your organization doesn't veer off into the gray area of ethics and you end up getting in a lawsuit or some kind of scandal and get shut down. So as a business owner, you owe it to yourself. You owe it to your team to keep your business rock solid. And the creatives can help you do that. So again, I'm Jerry Howard. This is your Intrepid Impact Leadership Broadcast. Hit us up on social media. Check out our brand new website, intrepid-impact.com, full of tools that you can check out, full of ways that we can help you. And again, I'm Jerry Howard, your host here at ESPN Richmond Radio 106.1. Thank you so much for listening in. Next week, we're going to dig deeper on that creative voice. I'll see you then.